And joining us right now on Live Your True Life Perspectives is our resident historian, Dan Nelson. Dan does amazing research to not only uncover, but to understand and to basically highlight family trees, their ancestry, from which they came, and all that information. As well as in the process, he stumbles upon and finds and digs into some really amazing historical stories that really need to be told. And he's going to share one with us today that I think is very interesting and definitely life changing for many of us. And this one is actually set, Dan, right in 1923, where a woman actually wants to wear makeup so bad that she's willing to go to court over it.
Yeah, sort of strange. This was a high school student, so a pretty brave thing for a high school gal to do in 1923. Her name was Pearl Pugsley, and she was living in Noble, Arkansas, and she went up against the school board because she said I should be able to wear makeup to school to make myself more attractive. And the board told her no, she needs to go wash off her artificial complexion. And then they fell back on a rule that the school board had developed that said you can't have face powder, short skirts, peekaboo waists, and they have those rules because they said they found that it tended to distract the attention of especially the boys in school.
That's hilarious.
So, yeah, you don't want the boys to be distracted. So she believed in the women's right to use anything on their faces that they wanted to make themselves more attractive. And so she went to the school board and said, I should be able to bring my powder puff with her. And that she said, I think boys and girls should be able to wear makeup as long as, there's no injury. Why should anybody care? So her case got appealed to the Arkansas Supreme Court, which isn't, the United States Supreme Court, but it's a pretty big deal when you're living in rural Arkansas. And in the meantime, the board expelled Miss Pugsley, so she's no longer in school. I guess she sits at home with her makeup. So then about the time this was really rising and turning into a bigger deal, they collapsed the high school down to 2 years instead of 3 years. And so she was now too old for high school, so it stopped being a school board problem and just became an issue for the Supreme Court to solve. But at the time in Arkansas, she was referred to as the Joan of Arc of makeup and lipstick, and the lipstick wars, they called it. So today, if she was doing this, she'd probably be signed on by Revlon or somebody to go endorse their cosmetics. So she had to change schools, and that took her out of sort of the middle of the confrontation. But when she was talked to about it, she said that she felt that her toes were being trampled on, and the Irish blood in her began to boil, and that she was going to fight this case as far as she could fight it. And so it was really sort of as much about women's rights at that time. If you think the 1920s, there was progress, but not a lot of progress. And so she felt she was pushing it for that reason. And so her father on his deathbed said to her that, I want you to carry this case to the court. So he was supportive of it. So way to go, Mr. Pugsley. But she received a half a ton of letters, is how it was described, of admirers and people that wanted her to continue fighting the good fight. This started about the middle of the school year. Well, unfortunately, love found her, and by the end of the school year, she was married to Armit Greer and abandoned her fight. So on the other side, you could sort of look at it as, well, what if Pearl and others hadn't prevailed? As the father of two daughters, maybe we wouldn't have had two bathrooms full of $14,000 worth of cosmetics so that they could make it through high school as attractive as possible.
That's hilarious, Dan. That's interesting how you uncover some of these awesome stories and historical reference as well when you're doing other people's family history and family genealogy.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I got a lot of stories, so happy to share them with your listeners.
I know we got some really incredible names too, like Lincoln and Bush, and the list goes on, I'm sure.
Yep, it's a long list, and a lot of the good stories do tie into people in history whose names we'll all recognize.
Awesome. Well, Dan, I look forward to having you back in studio. And where can people get more information about you and your work?
Yeah, just go to Ancestors Genealogy. So that's ancestors with a D in front, genealogy.com. And you can find helpful hints in there, and you can see the video testimonials from our happy clients. You could go to our YouTube channel, Ancestors Genealogy, and there's videos on there you can watch as well.
Awesome, Dan. Well, I'll see you back in studio.
All right, thanks.
Dan is a wealth of knowledge. I love his information. And these stories are so amazing because it crafts our history. And I love history, and I love learning about things that I had no idea actually happened. So amazing story, more amazing stories to come. Dan will be on the show. And I like to hear his stories because history is fun and it's exciting, and we learn about stuff.